Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Hendry, and today I'm talking about how moving to opportunities will impact the inequity due to segregated and isolated schooling in a positive manner. So now I'll be talking about my agenda. First, I'll talk about why I chose this topic and why it is important to address. Then I'll talk about the impacts that a student's living environment can have on their education. Next, I'll talk about the housing advocacy group called Home and what they have already done for Moving to Opportunities program. Then I'll talk about the complications to moving to opportunities. Lastly, I'll talk about how policymakers need to be involved. So first, I'll start off with a quote that really embodies what I have learned throughout the course. And it states, "Everyone should have an opportunity to learn in a positive environment, to enjoy the learning process and feel comfortable and content within." Although this quote is easy to think about, it is extremely important to understand and want to make a change from it. It is wonderful to have a great school to send students to, but the greatest impact is their home environment, which has a huge impact on their learning. As you can see from this graph, that the highest poverty schools rarely exceed state median English SCL test scores and have lower graduation rates. As you can see that 2% of the elementary schools scores above median in English SCL, and only 11% of the high school graduation rates above statewide median are in 90% or higher poverty, and that's pretty low. This shows that poverty will and can affect education. A few of the reasons that this occurs is because of the lack of supplies, support, health and well-being, and mobility. Studies have shown that supplies allows students to improve grades, creativity, attitudes towards learning, behavior, and peer relationships. Many schools that are in poverty areas do not have the funds to support every student to have supplies, and many of these students are coming to school with empty backpacks because there are rising costs to education. So that means supplies, schooling itself, rides, like being able to afford a car, and the health is very expensive as well. Having support, health, and well-being and mobility is challenging to do because many parents are working full-time to support financially that they do not have enough time to drive, cook, or help with things that may be beneficial in an academic setting. So the cycle that you see on the left is something that I created, and it shows that good education, successful environment, better housing quality, affordable housing, and neighborhood location, because all of them are important to have a good educational experience for a student and for them to succeed. You can see this through the diagram on the right that these can have positive things towards students' education. These all allow for children to have stress-free environment when a child can complete homework without distractions, avoid disruptions when it comes to unplanned moves, and better schools and better health outcomes. So in this, you see two cycles. One is the vicious cycle, which has failing schools, concentrated poverty, and bad housing. And by reinvesting money into the virtuous cycle, then you can have improved schools, better housing, and mixed income housing that will be more beneficial for students to succeed in an academic environment without having the stresses of moving and supplies and things like that. The issue that is created by housing segregation is the educational opportunities that children receive because of the zip codes that they live in. The relationship between racial segregated and unequal housing and schools are tied tightly together. This is due to the fact that affordable housing for low-income families is not in the same areas as high-opportunity schools. One of the solutions that has already occurred is a housing advocacy group called Home. House Opportunities Made Equal. This is a 10-year research demonstration that tries to break the housing segregation to allow for households to move to areas when they are supposed to be in low opportunity areas to high opportunity areas. Some of the findings were declines in violent crime, arrest for both male and female youth. This advocacy group tries to end the discrimination and promote equal opportunity housing quality, which can positively affect children's safety and health outcomes, which leads to better school attendance in class, and children can be helped with homework assignments as well from parents and educators. I think that one way that we can achieve this is by increasing housing more affordable in areas that have better housing qualities and safety to help students' physical and mental health. Moving to Opportunities randomly assigns people that volunteer into 3 groups. One group receives the housing vouchers only in low-income areas and counseling to help find a place. The second group receives housing vouchers but no counseling, and those vouchers are for anywhere. And the last group did not receive a housing voucher but still is eligible for government assistance. So these 3 groups allow them to understand what will help people the most. One recommendation that I think would assist in addressing the education housing nexus is by policymakers coming forward and allowing people to acknowledge the issue. The issue is that policymakers should embrace and capitalize on changing racial attitudes in the United States. I think that one area in particular would be amongst the younger generations. Promoting and stabilizing diverse communities and more public schools that are in lower income areas. The reason that I believe that this is important to address is because public policy is the reason for housing segregation, which causes the unfair educational system that children from K to 12th grade receive. If public policy were to address by policymakers, then these situations would have constructed the multiracial, income diverse city-suburb coalitions that are fundamental to bringing about change. This would assist in the education housing nexus issue because I believe that policymakers need to accept the responsibility to allow them to start making that change. Although there are many other steps that would need to be taken to address housing segregation, I believe that this will be the first step that the government and policymakers would need to take to start the process to change. And then we can go into moving to opportunities with the policymakers having more of an impact on the situation. I hope that this presentation has made an impact on how there needs to be a change and more involvement when it comes to moving to opportunities. To conclude, I would just like to restate that moving to opportunities will allow for social integration, less stress factors for students, and healthier risks. Creating a better home environment will allow students to succeed more in education and not stress about things that they do not have control over. Thank you for tuning in to my presentation. I hope you have a great day.
These are my works cited.